Alright, now that you know about different rainscaping features, let's look at how to apply. The program does operate as a reimbursement program. These reimbursements are 100% reimbursable up to $4,000 in the green program areas, the Mississippi River and River des Peres Combined Sewer Overflow program areas, or $3,000 in the blue Stormwater Quality Program area. These reimbursable costs include design, installation, and materials costs. Once approved, you are eligible for up to 1/2 of your grant award up front. If you elect to receive advance payment, the remainder of your award is paid out at the end of the project. The first thing to consider is who will be doing the work. We mentioned design, installation, and materials costs being eligible for reimbursement. You can choose any option: contractor design and install, do-it-yourself design and install, or mix and match as you see fit. Perhaps you want to come up with your own design and pay a contractor to install that, or perhaps you'd like a professional design that you will install yourself. We've had each option in the program, and I would say at this point it's been maybe 70-30 or 60-40% contractor to DIY designs. So don't think that just because you choose one option or another, you're guaranteed or are going to be counted out in any way. We have funded many projects that fit each of these categories. As of this round, we have waived the rule that participating contractors must be used in order to have design or installation costs reimbursed. That was a rule in previous rounds, but we are relaxing those requirements to get more participation from more contractors in the community. Keep the maintenance discussion that we had in the technical video in mind as you're consulting with contractors, if you choose to do that, or doing your DIY design, and let that kind of guide you based on the simplicity or the complexity of your project based on what you need and your maintenance abilities. Or perhaps you're going to be paying for the same contractor to come back and maintain this. So consider that as well. These are professionals, so do note that you may incur some consulting or design fees while you have these conversations about your project. Before we get into the elements of the application and design that we need, we went over the eligible features in the technical video, just noting some ineligible features. We are not paying for lawn care, no mowing or turf aeration. We won't pay for annual plants or vegetable gardens. We're looking for perennial native plants to get that year-over-year bang for our buck and get those advantages that the roots in the ground give us. We don't want to pay a large brick or rock cost, so we don't want to pay for retaining wall projects. We do have a 10% aesthetic rock maximum if we deem that a rock is for looks and not for function. Last and most importantly, no maintenance of existing features. We're looking again to replace turf grass, bare ground. We're looking to add rainscaping space, not enhance existing spaces that may be providing some rainscaping benefit. We're no longer requiring that you submit DigRite paperwork in advance of your application. However, we are having you sign off on the application that you will before digging, call DigRite and make sure that you're not going to be hitting any utility lines or anything like that. We used to make folks do that before submitting an application. We now understand that DigRite has a policy that you must be digging within the next 48 hours, and that provided a challenge to some applicants. So if you do have that paperwork from a previous dig, or you know that information, it's good to include on your application, but that is no longer required. What is required, one element is your landscape design. So you want to make sure that you're providing us a scale. We want to know when we're looking at the paper that has your design on it, what a square foot in your yard is represented by in the drawing. We want to know what the site looks like, where the existing vegetation and trees are. We want to know where you want to put your proposed rainscaping features, so do make sure to include that. If you are including a rain garden, do mark that you've done your percolation test in the design, and do ensure to show us where the basin is going in that rain garden, as well as the overflow spillway. Provide some arrows for slope so that we can see how water is moving across the property. Show us any bordering yards or streets, and any utility lines. We want to make sure that any bids that are received are on contractor letterhead, that they're on a formal document if you're utilizing a contractor. We don't want it something that's scribbled down on a piece of paper. We want to make sure that that is an official, legitimate bid. We have some plant list requirements. So those things are all built into that application structure. And they include the species name, the common name, the quantity of plant, the spacing, so how far apart those are going to be planted, the container size, so how big of a plant are we going to be starting out with, whether it's native or non-native, and obviously the price per plant or item for that matter. Additionally, we're going to need some photos of the site so that we can see the area and what's there, see that we are in fact replacing bare ground or turf grass or whatever the situation is. It really helps if you can print those out and take a Sharpie or a marker and kind of highlight where your features are going to go. That's highly recommended. Additionally, it really helps us out if you can get an aerial image as well. So whether you're taking a photo out of a second story window or just going on Google Maps and getting a satellite overhead image, sometimes that helps us get a better feel for the site and what's happening and helps us in our evaluation. Additionally, we want to know how you're going to maintain the project to see that it's going to be successful long term. We do have a sample maintenance plan in the handbook, so you can either opt that you're going to note to utilize that plan, or, and hint, this may be helpful to your application, you can come up with a custom plan for your project to let us know that you really know how you're going to be taking care of that. Additionally, we're looking for a soil amendment strategy, or what kind of mulching strategy you're going to use on a plant-based feature. We do need the application signed, right? So sometimes we have the landowner that's running point on the project, and other times we might have a renter somewhere or someone who may not be the official landowner on the project that's taking the lead on the project. We do want to make sure that even if someone else is running the project and communicating with the contractor and all of that, that we do have permission and the landowner's signature. And lastly, to really help give us a clear understanding of what's happening in the process. A narrative is worth bonus points. If you want to kind of take us through your project and describe what's happening and why you think it might be successful, we'll take that information as well, and you will get bonus points for that. And in the last slide, I started mentioning points. This is a competitive process, so you will be compared to other applications. But just to give you a sense of our funding process and what it's looked like in the past, the score of your application isn't the whole story. We're really looking for clarity and to sign off on a project where we know what's happening and we're comfortable with everything. So I do just like to show this graph here to show how many folks have been able to get approved and move forward with funding. This may change this year. This will be the first year that we don't have a required in-person orientation, so that may boost our numbers. It'll also be the first time that this is available online. So we aren't 100% sure what kind of numbers that's going to generate, but in the past, we believe the kind of limiting factor is how many folks are able to get with contractors and get a project submitted. So for those of you that are, take the funding criteria with a grain of salt, but know that the 100% most important thing is clarity in your application. So clarity, 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 and that really helps us understand what we're funding. So outside of having a clear, well put together application, this is the funding criteria and what's going to dictate our scoring and how you're going to compare with other applications. So the number one thing that's going to generate points is a large amount of stormwater managed. So the larger the project, the more points you're going to get there. Number two is a high percentage of native plants. Been stressing native plants throughout our videos. So do note that the higher percentage of native plants you use, the higher chance you have of being funded. Cost effectiveness is important as well. Having an appropriate design, so we really want to make sure it's the right feature for your space. Being available for outreach, so really that's just utilizing photos of your project and being able to reach out to you with to get feedback about the program and things like that. We're not going to be taking folks on any tours and coming by your house unannounced. And lastly, having an appropriate and detailed maintenance plan. So again, we want to really make sure that these are being taken care of long term and that our money is being spent wisely. So we want to make sure that you're able to take care of these projects. And again, that formula isn't the only way we evaluate. So don't think that if you have a smaller project, you won't be funded. We've done a lot of projects that are just over 100 square feet or maybe in that 200 square foot range. And again, those who are able to submit applications from that last slide do have a pretty high acceptance rate. So really being clear and detailed is your best strategy in the application process. So in terms of a timeline, we are hoping to provide some more flexibility this year. This will be the first time that we don't have an application deadline. And what we're trying to do is make it so that when you are able to get with a contractor or create your own plan, that it lines up for your project. We used to have a deadline, around the 1st of August. So for some folks, it was either too late or too early for their project timeline. So again, just trying to provide some flexibility. So that might impact kind of the static nature of our old timeline and hopefully provide a little more flexibility. But these are the steps that you're going to take. So you're currently attending the virtual orientation. Remember to take the quiz with the link on the small grants page so that we know that you've watched these videos. Next, you're going to use all the information from the videos to develop your proposal. So whether you're consulting with a contractor or developing yours on your own, go ahead and start that. Once you have that concept or that bid, you're going to complete the application process and mail that application to our office. I'll have that address on the final slide. Then we'll review those applications. We're hoping for about a 2-month turnaround. And then you'll receive your notification. So you'll get an email from our team that tells you whether you have been approved, whether your application needs some work, or whether your application has been denied. So if you're approved, you're going to get a series of paperwork. You'll get the agreement form, the advanced payment request, and you'll get your completion packet. You'll take the agreement form, which just states that you are in agreement with some of the program policies, and it'll state your award amount. You'll sign that and return that to us, and we'll then grant you your notice to proceed via email as well. And that'll let you know that we don't have any proposed changes. Your project is good to proceed, and you can start at that point. Don't start before you receive that, because we may have changes or we may not be willing to fund your project, and we don't want you to be out any costs before you get started. So do wait for that notice to proceed. At that time, once you get that, you can request your advance payment if you're going to go the advance payment route, and then you'll start completing that work. So the only thing that we do have that's going to be set in stone is a fall deadline date if you want to be paid prior to the following spring. So we have a ground truthing process where we go out and verify what was proposed has been installed, and we can't do that after the leaves fall and plants go dormant. So in late October, we'll post a fall installation deadline, or that will be in late October. We'll post that date when you get your agreement form, and that'll let you know how much time you have. You're able to submit that paperwork if you're finished. We just can't give you that final reimbursement until we ground truth the project. So if you don't get it in by that date, you'll have to wait till the following spring till we can get there and verify that everything has been planted or installed as proposed. And when you're turning in those documents, you're turning in photos of the finished project, receipts, and those completion forms, which will guide you through that process and make sense when you receive all of those documents. Again, and that ground truthing process is going to take place, and then we'll process that final check in the remainder of your reimbursement. Once you complete all the steps that we talked about and get all of those items together, you'll go ahead and mail them to the address below. That'll also be on the Small Grants webpage, posted very clearly, and we will let you know as soon as we receive your application. At this time, our office is closed to the public currently. So we are going to ask you to mail those. Do be sure to keep a copy for yourself in case they don't arrive in the mail. We can maybe take an electronic copy if you've mailed it in and we've not yet received it. So do look for our email once you go ahead and put those through in the mail, just to confirm that we received it. And then we'll start that 2-month clock to evaluate your applications and get you your notification.